Welcome to It's Upgrade Season, the only place to get raw and unfiltered advice on how to get your shit together 1 week at a time. I'm your host, Alexandria, and join me every Monday for The Upgrade and every Friday for The Wind Down, where I'm going to be answering your dilemmas. Small shifts, huge upgrades. Let's fucking do this. Hello and welcome back to It's Upgrade Season. I have a really powerful conversation that I'm going to be having today, all about being okay with being disliked. And it feels really potent to have this conversation right now because I feel like I'm giving you an insight to conversations with my therapist, okay? So this is really raw, really vulnerable, and very much in the moment, which I think there's a real beauty in sharing. I think we have to be careful not to constantly be like in something and sharing it because we haven't had time to get clear on how we think and how we feel around something. But I also do think there's a time where sharing that process in the process can be really potent. So I wanted to invite you into the conversations I'm having with my therapist right now, what I'm working through personally right now, and how I'm feeling now that I feel like I'm slowly getting to the other side of that process. I feel like this is something that is really tough to deal with, but really vital for our growth. And it's really dealing with and accepting being disliked. There's a book title which always comes to mind here, which is The Courage to Be Disliked. So if I refer to it as The Courage to Be Disliked, I'm definitely echoing that book title there. And I think it's really hard for us because this need to be liked is really rooted in us as humans. As we evolved, we were in tribes and we needed to be part of that tribe. We needed to be accepted by that tribe. We needed to be liked by that tribe in order to survive. So it really is this inbuilt survival mechanism that we need to be liked by the people around us in order to literally stay alive. The problem, as I see it, that is happening in modern society is the net of who we need to be liked by has expanded exponentially to a rate that we can't comprehend and we can't really keep up with. Instead of just being liked by the immediate tribe, we now need to be liked by everyone who follows us on social media. Not even everyone who follows us, everyone who has access to our social media if you have a public account. We need to be liked by the people that we met traveling 10 years ago and are still friends with us on Facebook, the people we went to school with, the people we went to high school with, then the different set of friends we went to university with, the people that we had in our first job or our first business or whatever it may be. I feel agitated even sharing how wide this net has become of the people that we feel this pressure to be liked by. And the way this impacts our daily lives, particularly with the impact of social media. And it's been honestly very illuminating for me to go on this journey because I thought it was a journey I'd already been on. I thought it was one of those processes that I had ticked off and I could merrily move on my way with. And it's been really confronting to realize just how much fucking work I've got to do around this and to be going through that process in a very deep way. So when I was 27, I had a full mental breakdown. I have told the story before, but I'll keep it brief. I started crying on a Sunday and I couldn't stop. And by Tuesday, I went to the doctor and I was signed off work and really had to reevaluate my entire life. And this was a very daunting process up until this point. So growing up, I struggled with anxiety and I struggled with depression, even to the extreme of taking an overdose when I was 22. And I share that extreme because you would have thought that was one of those pivotal moments in life where everything changed. But for me, that really wasn't the case. I really remember my priority at the time, once I was allowed out of hospital, which was a number of days later, was to get back to my studying, to get back to my degree, to get back to my relationship, all of which were things that were making me really unhappy at the time. So even sometimes when we have these big moments, those aren't the moments of change. But at 27, I did have this big moment of change. And I remember being so scared what people would think. I was scared what my friends would think. I was scared what my colleagues would think. God, the embarrassment and mortification I felt at at telling my work colleagues that I needed to change my life. I was really worried about letting my parents down. They really supported me to thrive academically. And I was really worried of letting them down and saying, hey, you know, all these things I worked towards in this career I worked towards, turns out I can't do it anymore. And I share that because I thought I'd gone through this process at that point. I thought I had made peace with being disliked or people disliking the decisions I made. But I realize now what I'd actually reached was desperation. The only thing scarier than the unknown was continuing with the path I was on. And so I didn't feel brave at the time of taking that step. I just felt desperate. I felt like the known path is so much worse. I just have to go down this path. And as a result, I was okay with being misunderstood or people not understanding the decisions I was making. Being disliked hits differently. There is something sharper and nastier about the energy of dislike. It's hurtful. It feels painful to be misunderstood and disliked. But perhaps the only thing more painful is being understood and disliked. So there's something really painful within us, and I just want to honor that before I get into how to stop giving a fuck about it. I just want to take a moment to honor that pain, that it doesn't feel nice for people not to like us. But as I'm now navigating this death and rebirth portal again, as I'm navigating changing and shifting since becoming a mother, changing and shifting as a result of the trauma I went through for 2 years and working out who the hell I am in this phase of life and on the other side of those experiences, I've had this realization that I am petrified of people disliking me. And I have struggled to sit with that discomfort to the point that I have started to sacrifice my own joy and happiness in order to be more palatable, to be more likable, for people not to think I have changed and I have shifted. And I'm going to say it right here, right now, I have changed, I have shifted. And there are going to be people who don't like that about me. I want to share as a kind of sidebar before I go into this process of how I am undoing that and how I'm becoming way more comfortable with people not liking me, about the unique world that I was in terms of coaching, because I actually think this has played a huge part. And I think I would be doing a disservice to not share a little bit more about this. I was trying to think of a parallel of where you offer a service. And I was thinking about the idea of maybe like an interior designer. So if you work with an interior designer on a project, a transformation project, which is why I like this example, where you're transforming your home, you would pay the interior designer, you would work intimately with the interior designer in that process, you would go through the transformation. And post that process, it would actually be very normal for you not to have any interactions or continued communication with that interior designer. The service, the transformation, the journey that you were on together would be complete. I also think it's very normal when someone has reached a certain level in the coaching world for that to be the case. So if you join a coaching program when they have a certain amount of followers, then you don't expect to be having a super intimate connection with that person. I've taken programs with people where they've got hundreds of thousands of followers, you're in a Facebook group with other people, maybe their team are supporting you in there, but you don't actually ever have any direct contact with that person. And if you do, it's very boundaried. You either have a one-on-one, which you've additionally paid for, and it's that hour, you're in, you're out, you don't have continued communication, or it's through a container such as you have a coaching call where you can submit a question or you ask a question and you know those boundaries. I think there's a really grey area, A, in the coaching world, but B, in the coaching world where people are having smaller audiences or more intimate programs where there is a real blurred boundary around the container itself. And I think it comes from a number of areas. So first of all, let me say, when a container has ended with a client or clients that I've had, so many clients at this point, I still really love and care about that person. That is just who I am as a person. You don't fake it in a container or on a retreat. You fucking adore that person. You see how special they are. You see that spark in them. And you really love and care about that person. However, when the container ends, the intimacy and the connection is naturally going to weaken. You are in a container, and now that container has been opened back up. It's very natural to not have the same level of intimacy that you've had before. And I think why it feels different to something like an interior designer is, yes, your home is a very intimate place. You literally live there and spend all your time there, but it's something different when you're dealing with transformation on the inside. It feels very personal. And I think what can happen is people make it about the coach rather than about themselves. So they make it about the connection with that coach rather than seeing the connection with the coach and the container as the vehicle to transformation that they needed in their life at that time, because they are the main character of their life. I think there's other things that can show up here as well, where coaching containers can open the way for a lot of projection. I've experienced that myself. I remember getting an email about something and going back to the email and responding. And the email in response to that was like, oh, sorry, actually, I've realized none of that email was about you. I was doing shadow work and a load of motherhood wounds just showed up for me, as a very brief example. So I think there's a lot of energies that come in when you're dealing with deep transformation. And I share this because one of my big fears that I'm naming, and it feels really scary to even say this out loud, a big fear I have is that previous clients who I truly cared for and do care for in a continuing energy, I fear they will dislike me if I change. I fear they will dislike me if I evolve. I fear they will feel that I have let them down in some kind of way. And I've really struggled with that. Really struggled with that. I also fear friends won't love me in this season of life that I'm in, because really find it hard to be on my phone a lot. I don't enjoy being on my phone, let me just say. I enjoy taking photos on it. I enjoy occasionally dipping in, but I really see my phone as very functional. If we're arranging to meet up, I will arrange to meet up. If I need to call Jake for something, I'll call to meet up. I don't like spending a lot of time on my phone. I prefer being very present. And you'll know that if you're a close friend of mine. If I go for dinner with you, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm fully present. I'm fully in that mode. And I am a mother now, and there are things that pull on my time and my focus and my energy, and I don't like my phone to be one. And I also just want to claim that. I want to own that I like living that way. I don't like living dictated to by the amount of WhatsApps I need to get back to. I had a friend, Sahara, recently reframe this for me. We were on a spa day, and she said to me, I really admire the way that you show up to your phone and you don't let yourself be dictated by it. And it was one of the first times I've had someone frame it in the positive for me. And it was a really healing moment for me to hear actually it's something that she found aspirational rather than something that was a weakness or something I should be ashamed of. And I also fear what my family will think when it comes to plans to growing our family in what is an unconventional way, because of the things I've been through, because of the increased risk that I have on my body and, quite frankly, my mind. And God, it felt really scary to say those things out loud. But I'm really in this season where I want to be fucking honest. I want to just show up as me. And this is part of it. If people don't like it, then I am going to accept that, and I have to accept that. And this is part of it for me. Because I've realized in this process of fearing what other people think about me, I have been abandoning myself, and I have been abandoning what is really important to me and what is really precious to me, and also abandoning who I'm becoming in trying so hard to cling on to a previous version of myself and the previous image that people have of me. I'm abandoning who I truly am in this moment and who I want to become and what's actually important to me as an individual, as a person, in the same way that all those other people get to be the main characters of their own life. And I can't do it anymore. I cannot do it anymore. There's a line in the sand that's been drawn. I have reached my fill. I'm actually just sick of my own shit with it, where I'm not willing to do this anymore in my life. And I found that is actually the time when some of the most profound shifts have occurred in my life. We sometimes want these really magical moments, and sometimes the profound shifts have come through those moments. They've come through to mezcal in Tulum. They've come through deep conversation with my partner. And honestly, some of the biggest shifts I have made in my life is I've just got so fucking sick of my own shit. I've reached that tipping point where the cup is too full and I just can't do this anymore. And I feel like this is what's happened. I've reached that point now where I'm like, I cannot continue in the way I've been continuing. And I also think it can happen when extreme things happen in your life. You might face a death of a loved one, a loss of a job, an ending of a relationship. And I feel like that also feels very true to me in this phase of life I'm in. I had to confront a fear really head on in one of my worst nightmares happening, in having to face a lot of confrontation, in having to lay down a boundary to protect my family and to protect the incredible unit we have created and to protect my family's safety, in all honesty. And it was really difficult. They didn't like that boundary, they didn't like that decision. And that was my worst nightmare. And I had to face that. I had to face someone not liking something I was doing. And instead of fawning and saying, okay, what would you like me to do? How can I make this better for you? I really had to face this was a big decision that I was making for my peace, yes, but also my family's safety, and honor that decision. And it fucking shook me up, but actually in the best kind of way, in that I feel like that has rippled out to these other areas of my life. And above all, I'm so tired of giving a fuck what other people think. And that might sound jarring to you right now, and that is okay. Let that be fucking medicine. But like, I am so sick of caring what other people fucking think of me and my life and my decisions. And I am so ready in this season to just reclaim me liking my decisions, me liking me loving this version of me, and that being the most important thing, and getting to pour from that place. So I want to broaden this conversation out and just talk about some of the benefits of being okay with people not fucking liking you, whilst also weaving in my experience. Like I said, this is like sitting down with me and my therapist right now. And I just want to be really honest, because I think when we really allow for other people to be honest with themselves. So I hope this stirs something within you. So first of all, one of the benefits, the freedom to be authentically you. When we are being something other than truly authentic, that is very draining on our energy, because it takes energy to put up that front. It takes energy to be inauthentic. And when you're trying to please everyone, you cannot be authentic. You're actually shape-shifting constantly to fit what will be more comfortable for other people, versus being your authentic self and seeing who's still fucking there at the end of the day. And it feels scarier, but it's actually way more energizing. And it's way more freeing. It's way more freeing to not be filtering your thoughts or filtering the way that you're speaking. I have a confession. I used to filter myself so much on my last podcast. It's part of the reason I just had to start again. It's part of the reason I just had to draw a line in the sand. And it's really interesting, actually, if you listen to the evolution of that podcast, there's a couple of episodes towards the end where really start allowing myself to come through more and stop filtering more and stop worrying that something will be misconstrued, or I've said something in the wrong way, or I've not caveated something. And then my favorite episodes, and we got such amazing feedback, not only from the people I was interviewing, but people who listened to those. I really kept filtering myself, and it was fucking draining. And one of the things I said on this podcast was, I'm not going to filter myself. I'm going to let it come out. And if people want to listen, if it lands for them, it's going to fucking land. And if it doesn't, they don't have to fucking listen to the podcast. So I really, truly am beginning to see, and I understood it intellectually as a concept, but now I'm really starting to embody it and realize the embodiment of this, that the biggest gift you can give to the world is being the truest version of yourself. And I've actually noticed the more true I am being to myself and the more truer version of myself I am bringing to the world, actually, the more I love and accept myself, but also the more I allow others to be shifted through that experience. I allow others to confront their own way of viewing things and seeing things. I let them do the work rather than trying to do the work for them. when you are constantly shape-shifting, you are doing the work for other people that they need to do on themselves. So there's a real freedom in it. And I wanted to bring in the book here, just briefly, The Courage to Be Disliked, because it really talks about the idea that in order to live freely and authentically, one must have the courage to be disliked by others. This means not living to meet the expectations of others or seeking approval, but rather focusing on one's own values and goals. And I really think that is another freedom that is created in it, is the ability to focus on your own values and goals and to hold those as sacred, to hold those at the forefront rather than holding other people's values and other people's goals at the forefront and living a life dictated by those and molding yourself to those. The other benefit that I have noticed to being okay with being disliked is it actually narrows your focus on the most meaningful relationships in your life in a really powerful way. It almost turns up the volume and the brightness and the vibrancy on those relationships. And that was something I didn't realize I was doing. I was working so hard to maintain such a wide array of relationships whilst also shape-shifting to people please within those relationships that I didn't realize how I was weakening and watering down what could be so potent. And by actually focusing on quality over quantity, by really getting clear on what was meaningful and whose opinions I do actually care about, and even those people, letting them dislike me at times, things like really went into technicolor. And I've realized that when I stop trying to invest in all these relationships that don't actually fucking matter to me, I get to invest so much more into the relationships that do, and they're so much more juicy. Something that became really clear to me was how much I've been taking for granted my husband. My husband is my favorite person in the world, and he is so fucking cool. I adore that man more than there are words. I'm fully fucking obsessed with him. I love the way his mind thinks. I love the way he helps me see the world in different ways. I love how generous he is. I love how loving he is. I love how clear he is. He just feels like this clear, beautiful, strong energy. And it is so magical for me to be around him. And I was fucking taking him for granted because I knew our relationship was good and I was letting myself be pulled on from all these other directions and worrying about other people disliking me. And when I stopped doing that, the energy I've had to pour back into our relationship and continue to build upon that, I didn't even know it could get better. It was so fucking good before, and now it just keeps getting better. And it's interesting, we've been in 2 containers recently. One was Layla Martin's Tantric Mastermind, and the other one was John Weiland, Fierce Love. And in both of those, when I was setting, my intention was, we're really good, but I just want to see how much better it can get. I want to open up to how much better it can get rather than trying to fix something. And I've got the energy to do that because I'm not trying to fix other people's opinions of me all the time. I also think you can truly give more to life when you're not splitting your energy. I realized how fractured and fragmented my energy body felt when I was trying to please all these other people and make sure they still liked me. It was almost, I really get a visual representation of this. It was almost, I was like scattered all around the world in these interactions I'd had. And to the point where I genuinely felt like I'd had interactions with people and they'd kept a piece of my energy. And this felt like this recalling of all of those pieces and being okay if that meant they now didn't like me. But oh my God, the surge of energy I felt in myself that I could give more to my life, that I could give more to my interactions, but I could just give more in general to myself has been so illuminating and so energizing. And I've really noticed a big shift in my energy through doing that. And a lot of this comes down to quantity over quality. It comes to, I think we are in a world where we have often put the focus on quantity. And I think we're going through a great awakening where we are shifting back to quality. And I think this gets to apply to whose opinions you hold dear and who you have close in your life as well. I am shrinking my circle rapidly. That is not to say I don't like or love those people. that aren't necessary within that inner circle. And that's also why I wanted to mention earlier the strange world of coaching. Just because I'm not close to someone anymore, or I don't message them or check in with them, doesn't mean I can't love them. And I think we really get to restructure how love works, because when love is from obligation, when love is forced, that is draining to us. But when love is free, and when we are free to love, that is energizing to us. And I've realized I feel really energized at the fact that I will always love the women that I have worked with and all the interactions I've had with literally thousands of women at this point. But when I try and hold an obligation to be the person that checks in, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. It feels draining. And then I don't have the energy to pour into the love for my son, my husband, and the people around me. So really focusing on making my circle a hell of a lot smaller, and really noticing how beautifully I can cultivate those relationships and pour into those relationships whilst not taking away from the love that I have for other people. And then when I was talking to my therapist about this, the analogy I gave that worked really well for me, and I wanted to share in case it resonates, is when you go traveling. So I appreciate it might be an experience I've once had, but whatever. This is the experience I've had. When I went traveling multiple times by myself in my early 20s, and I was solo, literally solo traveling. And when I was traveling around, I would meet people. And in those interactions, that interaction could last anywhere between 5-10 minutes to days and weeks. So sometimes I'd have an interaction. Back in the day, used to love a cheeky cigarette, not going to lie, particularly traveling. Maybe I'd ask them for a lighter and I'd have a cigarette with them. It feels like so alien, by the way, for me to admit that, but whatever. I would have a conversation with them. Maybe we'd have a lovely 5-10 minute conversation, and that would be it. That would be the interaction over. Maybe I would meet someone on a tour and we spent the day on the tour and we had a lovely day together. That would be that interaction over. Maybe I met someone at the hostel and we got on really well, and then we ended up spending like a week together, or I changed my travel plan to travel with them, or they changed theirs to travel with me, and we ended up coordinating our travel plans for a while. Beautiful. And maybe sometimes with those ones you would stay in touch over the long term. But what I realized was you really honored the beauty of an interaction for what it was, rather than trying to force it into something that it wasn't, or extend it beyond the life it was meant to have. And I think the mistake we're often making in a hyper-connected modern world is we are trying to force an interaction beyond the bounds of what it was meant to be. Maybe that interaction you had with someone was meant to be beautiful for that moment, but it wasn't meant to be something where you stayed in contact over the years. Or maybe it was beautiful in that moment and then you come back in touch as the years go on. So with the example of traveling, you have friends in many cities. Maybe when you're visiting that city, you say to that person, hey, I'm around. If you've got capacity, if you'd like to meet up, I'd love to see you. But you're not trying to force it beyond what it was meant to be. We're honoring the beauty of the interaction for how it was meant to be in that moment. And I realized this is something I stopped doing. I did it when I was traveling beautifully, but over the years, I have got into a pattern of forcing those interactions, or allowing those interactions to be forced upon me. I have given out my number when I don't want to give out my phone number. I have said, let's stay in touch, when actually I don't want to stay in touch, not because I didn't like them, but because that moment was only ever meant to be that moment, and because I'm already feeling pulled by the different people in my life. And it's worth saying, sometimes people are going to come into your life and you instantly click and you know that they're a fucking soul sister and you're going to stay really close to that person. I've had that experience recently. There was someone I was introduced to through a friend. We've got on like a house on fire, and I know that we're going to have a really amazing friendship, and that's something that I do want to cultivate. But it's worth knowing the difference. It's worth knowing when something is something to cultivate for the long term, and actually just honoring the beauty of a fleeting moment. So really focusing on that, that's something I'm going to be focusing on, noticing like, is this just a beautiful moment that we've shared, or is this something ongoing that I actually really want to pour my energy into on an ongoing basis? And then it also reduces stress and anxiety. Now, I'm laughing at myself as I say this, because it can initially cause more stress and anxiety knowing that people don't like you. And particularly if they decide to bring that to you, that can be a stressful situation. Not going to deny that. I have had people really call me out on this, and that's an uncomfortable conversation. I had someone literally track me down in person to tell me that I'd unfollowed them on Instagram and they were really upset with me. Fucking extreme behavior, okay? But as you can probably gather by listening to that as an external person, it's really not about you, babes. It's really not about you. It's really about the other person. And what you realize when you get past the tipping point is that actually those conversations aren't that stressful. They aren't that anxiety inducing. I am happy to have those conversations these days and say, this was what was best for me, to honor the people close to me. And that's the decision I've made. And I back that decision. I honor that decision. And feeling so rooted in that actually you don't care what shit people throw at you. And I feel like people also feel that from you as well. And you're just like, hey, this was the best decision for my life right now. What can you even fucking say to that? Like, how can you throw a hissy fit at someone doing that? You can't. You need to honor that they are the main character in their life and you're the main character in theirs. So go and do the work. If it's upset you that fucking much, go and do some work on it, because it's something that needs looking at. It's something that needs observing. And once you reach that tipping point, you actually realize life is so much less stressful and anxiety inducing when you're not trying to make everyone like you. You just get to show up as you, and who likes you is going to like you and who doesn't like you isn't going to like you, okay? There was someone on Instagram who I really wanted to unfollow. They kept sharing all these like scary videos and these like very controversial things, and then these very extreme political views. And honestly, like their content just stressed me out. Like I just didn't enjoy it. And I was starting to feel that we had misaligning values as well. But I was so scared of offending this person. I really didn't want to offend them by unfollowing them on Instagram. So I'd constantly go to unfollow them and I'd be like, oh no, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then whatever. Anyway, they popped up on my Instagram recently and I'd been doing this work and I was like, fuck it. I'm unfollowing them. Like, I just don't want to, I don't want to see this shit on my Instagram feed. I can still like them as a person. I do like them as a person. Honestly, if they're in the room, I'd have a great chat with them. I like them as a person. I just don't enjoy following them on Instagram. But I was worried they're going to dislike me and all this shit. Anyway, I went on. I unfollowed. I did the brave thing. I realized she'd already unfollowed me. She didn't follow me on Instagram. And I've been so worried about unfollowing it. She's clearly unfollowed me at some point and not thought twice about it. Maybe she did. I don't fucking know. And it was so freeing. It was so freeing. And it was such a reminder. That stress and anxiety I made in my life, I made in my body. She wasn't creating it. That was a decision I was making. I've talked a lot about now, like how fucking good it basically feels to stop caring so much about people disliking you. But how do we actually go on that process? What's actually helped me? What are the thought processes? What are the shifts that I've made to get me here? I'm going to share more about these. So first of all, think about the energy exchange. When you think about the amount of energy that you are pouring into someone else who you don't even really particularly care about or have that much interaction with, who doesn't massively impact your life, think about it this way. On your deathbed, are you going to be thinking about that person? Would you want them in the room with you as you transition to the other side? If the answer is no, they're probably actually not that fucking important to you. The amount of people that are is very small. If you think about the amount of energy you're pouring into those people, when you could be pouring that into other parts of your life, it becomes very clear this energy exchange isn't working. And that was one of the things that became clear to me. I have less energy as a mum. I have less time as a mum. Facts are just fucking facts. I'm still learning to navigate that. Full transparency, on this trip to London, I've overdone it. UK even, I've overdone it. We've had big family parties, we've had jet lag, we've had Leo being ill, I've been up and down the country. There's just been a lot and I've been tired and it's felt too much. And that's something that I get to now reflect on and work out how I can make it work for me. But I just have less energy as a mum. Facts are facts. And I want to make sure that I'm putting that energy into things that are important and things that are aligned. So consider the energy exchange. The second thing is think about the impact they actually have on your life. I'll give an example here, which is very alive to me. I recently went on a retreat, which was a fantastic retreat, really amazing. And the women I met there were honestly stand out. So incredible. Really, truly adored these women that I was with. We went on this journey together and it was absolutely amazing. However, I'm probably not going to stay in touch with many of them. Maybe one or two, but like, I'm not going to actively go out of my way to cultivate big friendships with them unless we're in the same place at the same time, in which case it would be amazing to go for a coffee and catch up. But I'm not going to spend loads of time trying to force or cultivate a friendship there, because the reality is, in my day to day, that isn't going to impact my life in a positive way right now. What's going to impact my life in a positive way is pouring into my son, pouring into myself, pouring into my husband, and pouring into the village that I've created. Those are the places and the capacity that I have right now for direct pours of energy. But like I said, I love those women. They had a huge impact in that moment. But if I try to extend it beyond that, it would actually be creating a negative impact versus a positive impact. The next thing is a big one. And on the flip side of things, it's be okay with letting go of close relationships. It was really through the process of letting go of a close relationship, or the possibility of letting go of a close relationship, that really actually granted me a lot of freedom, because it made me realize how important it was to hold dear, first and foremost, my own energy and liking myself and staying in alignment with my own values, and really being in integrity with those values that felt important to me first and foremost. And being okay with being disliked, or my decisions being disliked, to go a little less extreme with it, in that situation, gave me the freedom to really realize I have to like myself as the priority, and it's less about other people liking me. When you stop fearing that rejection, you can really realize that the people who love you for you are going to be in your life. The people who are meant for you are going to be in your life, and that you get to really trust in that. And there's a real freedom in that. And the reason I gave the example of people close to you is we can be bringing this inauthenticity, this desire to be liked, even into our close relationships. We can be bending in micro ways until we realize just how far we've bent, and we've bent too far. We can be doing it with parents, for example. There's a lot of people pleasing with parents. We bend until the point we realize it's gone too far and we don't like ourselves anymore. Be okay with people disappearing once you start to embody the courage of being disliked. And if you can embrace that with the people closest to you, you're going to be really okay with Sandra on the internet unfollowing you or disliking you. Okay? This is like full on in your fucking face work, and then it makes the other stuff so fucking easy. It makes it a drop in the water. So be okay with letting go of close relationships, and know that's okay. As long as you love yourself and you're true to your values, the people who are meant to be around you are going to be around you. And maybe you get to upgrade the circle that is around you. Remember, quality over quantity. Develop greater self-awareness. So really start to recognize when you're acting out of a need for approval rather than genuine desire. Because when you let go of needing everyone's approval, that's when you really gain the freedom to live your truth. So a place I noticed this was showing up for me was where I was sharing things. Like, where was I sharing something because I felt I needed approval or I needed people to understand me, versus a genuine desire to share something. So for example, I'll give a really clear example of this. I would feel the need to share on Instagram when I was having a hard time or moving through something difficult, because I wanted people to see that A, that was the truth, and B, I wanted people to know that if I hadn't responded to a message or I hadn't got back to something, that was why. It felt almost performative now when I look back, that I needed other people's approval to be experiencing that experience. And actually, the real turning point for me was my pregnancy. And I was really fucking struggling. And I didn't want to share that I was struggling, because I just wanted to pour into me. I just wanted to give to me. And I wanted to share that as and when I was ready. And I think it's really interesting to start to notice, and it's not even on Instagram, maybe it's on WhatsApp or stories you share with friends. Where are you sharing it because you feel the need to be understood, or you feel the need to prove something, or you want them to still like you or to understand or to make an excuse for you even, versus genuinely having a desire to share that from the heart? It's a really interesting thing to start to observe yourself, and you'll start to observe other people as well doing it. I really notice myself observing on Instagram when I can feel people are sharing things from this need for approval rather than genuine desire to share it. Like the classic when people like share something like, oh, I'm going through something, but they don't share what it is. But then it's almost as like attention seeking energy. And it's, why are you sharing that, full stop? And that starts with us. We have to get really clear and really notice our motivations behind sharing something. The pursuit of recognition, of validation from other people is a source of unhappiness. True freedom and true happiness come from within us, from loving and accepting yourself first and foremost. And when you do that, when you truly do that, when you truly embody that, you're okay with other people disliking you. You're okay with other people disagreeing with your decisions because they're not their decisions to make. I do want to give a brief caveat on this because I'm talking a lot about it being okay with people disliking you. What I'm not talking about here is you consciously making decisions that have a negative impact on other people's lives. Now, that might be a secondary impact of your decision. So say you're not happy in a relationship and you decide to leave that relationship, that is going to cause someone unhappiness, realistically. Okay, but that's a secondary consequence. That is very different to going out of your way to do something to cause others harm. This is not what I'm advocating for when I say it's okay with other people disliking you. This is not the same, for example, with going to someone's Instagram page and writing a load of hate on their post. This is not the same as going into someone's DMs even and sending them a load of abuse or venting or reacting to them, okay? That is very different to making a decision for yourself first and foremost, and as a secondary consequence, it might impact other people, versus going out of your way to do something nasty and the dislike as a consequence of that. That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm not about to become a keyboard warrior. I'm not about to start trolling people. I'm not going to start going out of my way to actively be disliked. I am just going to show up as me, authentically as me, with my big heart, with my big love. And if people don't like that, I'm going to be okay with it. The next step that I want to talk about is setting boundaries. So really setting boundaries with people who drain your energy or disrespect your values. It's better to be disliked for being real than be liked for being fake. And I think that's often what we are subconsciously doing when we don't set boundaries, or we people please, or we just bend and sway with making other people okay. Because when you are doing that, you're being inauthentic to yourself. I was speaking to my husband about the concept of boundaries and at length. And one of the things that he said to me, honestly, Jake is like one of the wisest people I know. And one of the things he said to me was, boundaries aren't just a loving act for others, they're a loving act for yourself. And I think when you think about boundaries in that way, they're a loving act for yourself. When you're pouring that love into yourself, you can give that love more freely actually to other people because you have those boundaries in place. So really honoring them. When you aren't honoring your own boundaries, you're actually being inauthentic to yourself. You're therefore being inauthentic to others. That's not a true relationship. That's not true intimacy. So actually true intimacy interweaves and has boundaries interwoven to the very fabric of that relationship. It is a natural and necessary part of intimacy to have boundaries so that you can remain in authentic connection with yourself. And also to stop fucking gaslighting yourself. When you're so busy trying to be liked by other people, you're trying to bend and mold yourself into a more palatable version of yourself. And in many ways, we can gaslight ourselves in that process. So you don't want to be doing that. I really realized I've been doing that as well, in terms of I'd been trying to make myself wrong for having the needs that I had, rather than allowing myself to be right. When I allow myself to then be right in the needs that I have, because I know myself best and I know my needs first and foremost, better than anyone else is ever going to know my needs, then I can honor those needs and act upon those needs And again, the replenishment I am feeling, the nourishment I am feeling within my body from doing that versus trying to cater to other people's needs and bend and mold for that. And lastly, build resilience. Build fucking resilience. Develop a thicker skin by focusing on loving yourself rather than external validation. When you love yourself first and foremost, you really care less what other people think. And that is the point I have reached. I know I'm a really kind person. I know I am a really loving person. I know I am a really fucking solid friend. I know I'm an incredible wife and mother. And I know my heart. I know what I value. I know what I hold dear. And I love myself. And you know what? I love myself with my flaws. I know that I am not great at responding to WhatsApps. I know I'm not going to be the friend who cares what you had for lunch, but I will be the friend that will go above and beyond in other ways. I know I am not the most organized person in some ways. I know I am not perfect, and I love and I accept myself as not perfect. And from that place, it is okay if people dislike me because I love and accept myself. And I am the person that is with me from start to finish. I'm the person who's got to live with the decisions that I make. I'm the person who's got to live with the boundaries that I uphold or don't uphold. And I'm okay with that. I hope this conversation, I hope this episode has given you more courage to be disliked. I hope it's helped support you with being okay with other people liking you and or disliking you. I hope it's made you okay with other people making up stories about you or projections or narratives that don't actually ring true. And that being okay because that's what they need in their life at this moment. But coming back to you, coming back to who you are and loving that beautiful and perfect version of yourself, even if other people don't like it. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I love you. I'm sending you joy. I'm sending you abundance, and I'm sending you the strength and the courage to be disliked.